Hey, there we go. Sorry. Yeah, you're good. I'm on. Okay. So minor bug there at the beginning. Sorry about that, folks. New computer, new streaming system. We're getting there. Let's start over. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another Planetarium live stream after taking last week off for the Thanksgiving holiday. My name is Jessica. I am the director of the Planetarium, and with me tonight is one of my students who you probably know, but I'll still let him introduce himself.
Hi, my name is Yo. I'm a physics and astronomy student at UMD.
So, since it is officially December, cannot believe it, we are back at the beginning of the month to do What's Up, this time December edition. And oh, there is a lot going on in the sky this month. Now, as I get things switched over and set up, as we are going through the show tonight, if you do have any questions for us, you can always leave them down in the comments. And Eli will be watching those for me, and then we will also, or Eli will be watching, will tell me when they come up. If I don't get to them right away, we can take questions at the end as well. But let's get into it. So we are starting out looking at the moon. So we have the moon phases that are going to happen this month, starting with the third quarter moon happening on December 7th. About a week after that, on December 14th, we're going to have the new moon. About a week after that, on December 21st, we will have the first quarter, and then our full moon will come at the end of the month on December 29th. And our December full moon is known as the oak moon. Now, here are also the times that the moon phases will be up, because the moon phases are up at different times of the day. That's why we could sometimes see the moon at night, and sometimes we see it up during the day. Now, along with this, on December 14th, there is going to be a total solar eclipse. Now, before you get too excited, unfortunately, this is not something we're going to see here in North America. This is going to be visible to people in South America. But a solar eclipse happens when the moon passes directly in between the sun and the earth and casts its shadow on the earth. And if you are within the moon's shadow, you will see a solar eclipse. Now, as I said, this one is going to be viewed by people in the kind of southern part of South America. While we will not be seeing it here, you can bet there are definitely going to be streams of the event. And we will share any of those streams that we find up on our social media. The eclipse is supposed to start about 8:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. And as I said, we will share those streams so that you can still watch virtually and see this really cool event as it happens. Now, also coming up, about a week after that, on December 21st, we have the winter solstice. So Earth's orbit, or as Earth orbits around the sun, its axis is tilted. And so that means for some parts of the year, the northern hemisphere is tilted towards the sun, and for some parts of the year, the northern hemisphere is tilted away from the sun. And that's what ultimately causes our seasons. When we're tilted towards the sun is high up in the sky, it's up for a long time, and so we get warmer weather. And then when we're pointed away from the sun is up for a shorter period of time and lower in the sky, so we don't get as much warmth from the sun and we end up with cooler weather. Well, our solstices events mark the time when we are most tilted towards or away. So the summer solstice happens when we are most tilted towards, and the winter solstice happens when we're most tilted away. And we use these days to designate the start of the summer season for the summer solstice and the start of the winter season for the winter solstice. And since we are in the winter solstice most tilted away from the sun, that means the sun is going to be lowest in the sky that it gets throughout the year for us here in the northern hemisphere. And that means that our day is the shortest. Because the sun is lowest in the sky, it's up for the shortest amount of time. So the winter solstice is our shortest day of the year and longest night, and marks the beginning of winter. Now, to celebrate our winter solstice, we will be hosting a special Facebook live stream on December 21st, starting at 7 p.m., right here on Facebook Live. With the stream, we're actually going to be joined by a couple of guests. We're going to have Bob King, aka Astro Bob, who is going to tell us all about this winter solstice event. And then we'll also be joined by Jim Rock, who is going to give us an Indigenous perspective on the winter solstice and also tell us some of his favorite winter constellations that are up. All right, so let's move on now to the planets. Now, unfortunately, Mercury cannot be seen up in the sky during the month of December, but Venus is very visible up in the early morning sky. So it can be seen in the southeast just before sunrise. And it's very bright. You'll see it very obviously in the southeast sky, brighter than any of the stars that are around it. Now, over the course of the month, Venus is slowly moving closer and closer to the sun, and so it will be rising up in the sky closer and closer to sunrise. So at the beginning of the month, it's going to be up fairly early. You can see here 6:30 a.m. But as we get later in the month, it's going to get closer to the sun, and so that'll shift to 6:45, 7 a.m. before it's up. And then not too long from then, it'll be obscured by the sun's glow. So if you are up early in the morning, definitely take this chance to look over in the southeast and see that bright morning star of Venus before it disappears for a little while from our view. All right, also up, but this time in the night, is our red planet, the planet Mars. So it can be seen pretty much all night long from sunset until a few hours after midnight. It's pretty high in the sky. What we're seeing here is a view at about 7:30 p.m. A little bit later in the month when the moon is going to be pretty close by. But you can see it in the southern sky. Mars is slowly getting dimmer as Earth is moving away from Mars, since we just had opposition, our closest approach, not that long ago. We're now moving away, and Mars is going to get a little bit dimmer over the course of the month. But it's still bright, easy to see with your eyes, and in fact, if you have a good dark spot, you can even tell that Mars is red in color. And so you can see that with your eye. You can see that red color. Now you'll also notice joining Mars in this view are the planets Uranus and Neptune, which you may see, you can't actually see a point of light, and that's because Uranus and Neptune are a bit too dim to be seen with the naked eye. But if you have a telescope, you can still take a look at them, and this is what they're going to look like over here. Uranus is a bit brighter than Neptune, so it would be a little bit easier to see. In fact, this month, it is just barely visible to the naked eye. So if you can find a super, super dark spot to look, you may be able to see Uranus with your naked eye. But otherwise, a pair of binoculars or a really small telescope will easily let you see these two outer planets. And then last up, we, of course, have Jupiter and Saturn, which have been visible for all summer long and into the fall. They are setting a little bit earlier each night, but they're still very visible right after sunset over in the southwestern sky. They're very bright, and if you've been watching, you may notice that they have actually been getting closer and closer together, which brings us to kind of the big planetary event of this month, the Great Conjunction. So this is going to happen on December 21st. This is when Jupiter and Saturn are going to get incredibly close together. They are going to be 0.1 degree apart, which is so close apart that you actually cannot distinguish them as two points of light with your naked eye. To your eye, it will look as if there's just one very bright object there. Now, you might have heard about this coming up. This is something astronomers, both professional and amateur, have been very excited for. And the reason for that is this is the closest Jupiter and Saturn have gotten since back in 1623. And they won't be this close again until the year 2080. So this is definitely a rare and spectacular sight. Get outside if you can. As I said, they are setting pretty early, so you're going to want to be out by about 5, definitely by 5:30, and look towards the southwest and you will see it. If you do have a small telescope or a pair of binoculars, Jupiter and Saturn are so close together that you can see both of them in your field of view of your pair of binoculars or your telescope. Now, if you can't get outside, don't worry. If the weather permits, we will be hosting a telescope stream starting at 5:30 p.m. that evening to show you the Great Conjunction through our telescope. And then you can see Jupiter and Saturn both together there. So we're very excited. This is going to be a busy day for us. We've got the Great Conjunction stream in the evening, right around sunset, and then hour or so later, we have our winter solstice stream at 7 p.m., where we're again being joined by Bob King and Jim Rock. All right, so that is everything going on with the planets, but that's not all we have going on this month. Coming up in the month of December is one of the best meteor showers of the year. So if you don't know, a meteor shower happens when Earth passes through this debris trail that's left behind as comets orbit the sun. So the really bright kind of glow and tail that you see of a comet happens because as the comet, which is mostly ice, gets close to the sun, those ices vaporize. And as they vaporize, they actually carry dust with them, and that dust gets strewn out around the sun along the comet's orbit. And a lot of these orbits we happen to intersect with. We pass through them. And so when we pass through this debris trail, all those tiny little pebbles and sand grains that are scattered along the comet's orbit fall through our atmosphere where they heat up, and we see that streak of light that we call a meteor or a shooting star. So on December 14th, we will have the Geminids, which is, again, one of the best meteor showers of the year. It is called the Geminids because the meteors appear to come from the constellation of Gemini, which you can see up really early in the morning towards the south. But just because they appear to originate from Gemini doesn't mean you have to be looking that direction. You will be able to see meteors in any direction that you look. Now, the Geminids typically run between December 4th and December 17th, with the peak happening on the 14th. It's going to be very early in the morning. In fact, they're estimating that around 2 a.m. on December 14th, we could reach up to 120 meteors per hour. And we're definitely going to have a great show if the weather is clear because we are at a new moon at this time. So there's going to be no pesky moonlight to obscure our view of these meteors. So if you can, definitely get out to see this. It's going to be spectacular. If you are in the Duluth area, a couple of places that we like to recommend are down at Brighton Beach. We also recommend up at Hawk Ridge. These are a couple of really great dark places that you can get out and see this meteor shower. But the Geminids are not the only meteor shower this month. A little bit later, the Ursids peak on December 22nd, again, very early morning. The Ursids are named after Ursa Minor. That's where they appear to originate from, but again, you can see them anywhere in the sky. The Ursids, though, are not quite as spectacular of a meteor shower. We're going to be looking at 5 to 10 meteors per hour, but still a fun event if you want to get out and see it. All right, one last really cool astronomical event that you can see this month has to do with the star Algol. So Algol is known as the demon star. It's actually where the name or where the word ghoul comes from, and it's in the constellation of Perseus. Now, if you've seen any of our constellation shows, you'll know that Perseus is famous for killing Medusa. And in fact, his constellation, he is actually holding Medusa's head, and this red star Algol is the red eye of Medusa. And what's really cool about Algol is it's what we call an eclipsing binary star. So Algol is actually two stars that are orbiting around each other in such a way that every so often they cross in front of each other and they block some of the light. And so the overall brightness of Algol appears to drop. So this actually happens about once every just over or just under 3 days. And this dimming event happens for about 10 hours. But the reason I'm telling you about this one happening on December 31st is it's actually happening at a really great time for you to see it for yourself. So starting about 6:10 p.m. Central Standard Time on New Year's Eve, if you go out and look at the star Algol, you will see that you'll see it at its minimum when it's the dimmest. And then over the next several hours, if you just kind of check in on it, you'll see it get brighter and brighter and brighter as it's coming out of this eclipsing event. So just another cool thing that you could actually watch for yourself. And I mean, we're all staying up that night anyway, right? It's New Year's Eve. Why not do some observing while you're at it? All right, and that is all of the celestial events happening in the month of December. But I do have a couple of news things to tell you about. Oh, no, I forgot. I forgot about this one. Before we get to the news, we also have quite a lot of bright ISS passovers at the beginning of this month. So you can find this information at heavensabove.com. It's heavens-above.com as written there. And if you put in your location and click on the little section that says ISS, it'll give you the date and time for when the International Space Station is passing over you. So this is for Duluth, and it tells you how bright it's going to be. Now this is in magnitude, which is a little bit of a weird system. But with magnitude, the smaller the number, the brighter it's going to be. And like on December 3rd here, a magnitude -3.8 is very, very bright. And it's going to be visible right in the evening. So if you click on that date, it'll actually give you a map of where you need to look to see this ISS passover. So a couple of the brightest ones coming up over the next few days. On December 3rd, right around 6:14 p.m., in the passing from the kind of northwest to overhead, we'll have a nice bright International Space Station flyover. Then the next day on December 4th at about 5:26, the ISS is going to pass almost completely across the sky. Again, starting in the kind of northwest and then going across. And then a few days later on December 6th, we have another really great pass by happening at 5:28 p.m. Again, starting in the northwest and going, this one definitely going like almost directly overhead and nearly all the way across the sky. So a couple of really great passes coming up over the next few days. And for anyone who hasn't seen or doesn't know what this is going to look like, when you see a satellite pass by, you're going to see this bright light steadily moving across the sky. In fact, you can easily tell the difference between a satellite and a plane because the plane lights flash. So if it's moving and flashing, it's a plane, but if it's moving and steady, it's a satellite. All right, now on to a couple of news stories. We're going to start off with the not so great news. Unfortunately, the Arecibo telescope has collapsed. If you joined us 2 weeks ago for Ask an Astronomer, you will have heard me talk about the Arecibo telescope that at that time had suffered two major cable failures, but was still standing upright. And then the next day after that, on November 19th, it was announced that Arecibo was too unstable to fix, and so they were going to decommission it. But they were trying to figure out the best way to decommission it without, and still be able to salvage as much as they could. But gravity decided it had other plans. And just the other day, on December 1st, so yesterday, the giant support or the giant, I think it was like 900 tons. Um, why am I blanking on the word? We'll just say piece. That was suspended above the dish that held like instruments and stuff. The rest of the cable snapped and it crashed down into the radio dish below, and has very much destroyed the radio dish, unfortunately. So this is very, very sad. A lot of us are very sad over this, not just because Arecibo is definitely out of commission now, but also the loss of any of the pieces that we were hoping to salvage and preserve. Arecibo has done a lot of amazing work in radio astronomy. It's also been fairly prominent in popular culture too. So we are very sad by this news. But don't want to end the show on that. So a little bit of good news. China successfully landed a spacecraft on the moon. So they launched their spacecraft back on November 23rd. It touched down yesterday. And the goal of this mission is to actually collect samples from the moon and then bring them back to Earth, which is the first time we have done this in about 44 years. And so they have collected other samples. The container with the samples will be launching from the moon tomorrow and should make its way back to Earth and land here on December 16th. So really great job to China and all the amazing work that they did to get this successful landing and collection sample brought back to Earth. All right. Well, that's all I have planned for today. Did we get any questions or anything?
Nope.
No? All right. Well, if you do have any questions, now is a great time to leave them down in the comments. While we wait for that, let me tell you a little bit about what's coming up over the next week. So Saturday, we will be doing our December constellation story time, telling you the stars and constellations that are up during the month of December and some of the fun stories behind them. Then next Wednesday, we are going to do a beginner's guide to telescopes. Since we are in the Christmas season, the giving season, you may be interested in purchasing a telescope, or maybe you have a little one that wants their very first telescope. We're going to tell you all about what you need to know and give you our suggestions for the best beginner's telescope. And then next Saturday, we're going to talk about the aurora and the mystery of the northern lights, because the sun is starting to be active again, and that means we have a very good chance of seeing some auroras over the next couple years, honestly, as the sun picks back up. But we'll tell you all about that next Saturday. And we are still selling our stellar distancing t-shirts to raise money, since we have been closed since March. Cannot believe how long it's been. But since we have been closed, we obviously haven't been able to bring in any revenue for our shows. So this is just helping us to try and recover some of that so that we can keep doing these live streams and keep hosting some drive-through events. We'd like to do more since Halloween was so successful.
So fun.
All right. Well, that's all I've got. Not seeing any questions. So, thank you everyone so much for joining us. We hope you enjoyed the show. Definitely get out and see some of these amazing things we have going on this month. And let us know. Tag us in any pictures or anything that you do. We're definitely love to see all of the love for the stars in our community. All right, well, we hope you have a wonderful evening, and we will see you next time. Bye, everyone.